I'm Jackie Doucette, and I'm on a mission to discover exactly what life is like beyond retirement. Join me while I chat with people who've already done it, who've retired to something rather than from something. Let's find out together exactly what's waiting for us when we say goodbye to that 9 to 5. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Beyond Retirement. Today, I'm thrilled to be joined by Eric Weigel. Eric calls himself a retirement architect. He's a founder of Retire with Possibilities, an advisory and retirement coaching firm dedicated to helping people conscientiously design their own journey into retirement. He's a certified professional retirement coach and a University of Chicago MBA grad with more than 3 decades of experience. He's a baby boomer born in Washington, D.C. to a Costa Rican mother and a German father. He's lived in 4 countries and he's fluent in Spanish. His multinational upbringing has greatly influenced his outlook on life. Eric, thanks for joining me today.
Thanks, Jackie. I'm thrilled to be here.
So first off, I'm really impressed that you're fluent in Spanish, but I guess that'd be expected with a mom from Costa Rica. I'm working on Spanish myself with Duolingo, but I'm definitely got a long way to go.
I love it. A big part of me is sort of the Latin culture, and even though I was born in Washington, D.C., as you mentioned in the introduction, but I have lived in Peru and Costa Rica, and I kind of think of myself as my home is the U.S., Boston, but my spiritual home is really Costa Rica.
Oh, that's nice. Maybe you don't want to get into this. How come you're not fluent in German too?
Because I wasn't smart enough. My father's German, as he mentioned, and I actually attended the German schools from the ages of 4 through 17, and wow, both in Peru and Costa Rica. So I do speak German, but I'm not fluent in it. And German, when you live in the U.S., for example, you hear a lot more Spanish than German. So my opportunities to really practice my German are limited. And that's why I usually, on my professional resume, I'd say I have a working knowledge of German, but I'm not really fluent in it.
Probably a whole lot better than most of the people that I know, including me.
Well, and it also helps when I have a beer or two, but that's self-confidence.
Of course. So let's start with just a basic understanding of who you are and what started you on your journey to create your business, Retire with Possibilities.
Yes. I was an investment manager. I was an investment manager for over 30 years. And I started working with a company called Russell that did a lot of pension fund consulting, the largest pension funds around the world, in the US, Canada, Australia, Europe, all over the place. And then I moved into the money management business. So I managed separate accounts for large financial pension funds, as well as individuals. And about, in the late 90s, I moved from the institutional side of the business, which was dealing with pension funds, to more the mutual fund side of the business. So I worked at a number of large mutual fund firms in the U.S. And after, when the financial crisis hit in 2008, that was a very significant event for a lot of the financial industry, because sort of the idea of actively managed funds sort of went a little bit out the door. And I started noticing that my career was sort of peaking at the time. I was about 50 years old, 48, 50 years old at that time. I also started thinking about what I wanted to do long term. I had just gone through a divorce. I had been thinking about sort of, how much longer do I want to be in the investment management business? And really started thinking about my own retirement. And I had never really thought about it before. I had sort of always put money in my retirement funds and save money. But beyond that, I never really thought about what I wanted to do once I didn't really have a full-time job or was in a place and had the opportunity to actually manage 100% of my time. So that's what really got me thinking about sort of retirement in general. And of course, most people start with the financial side. Then they might think about where they want to live. But what I sort of discovered fairly early on in my search for answers was that there were a lot of other questions that there was a lot less help for.
Yep.
So, for example, what to do with my time, what is going to give me satisfaction beyond sort of a good performance review and good performance of my funds, and sort of what I envision for my life long term. And that's what got me thinking about sort of retirement coaching, and sort of the whole idea of incorporating sort of different fields, clearly finance for, the financial side, but also, kind of personal growth, sort of emotional stability, all kinds of fields sort of converged on what I was learning. And it really took me probably 7, 8 years to kind of put it all together. I continued to work in the financial industry, and it really wasn't until the last 5 years when I became certified as a retirement coach that I really sort of made this sort of my go-to professional activity in my life.
So I've been looking at your book. I've been reading Reimagining Retirement, 9 Keys to True Wealth. And I like the way that you've laid it out. I also went to your website, and you start off the book with the same questions that you have on your website, the things that we really need to think about when we're heading into retirement. And then as you go through the book, you point out that there's not really any magic amount of money that means retirement is going to be successful or happiness, because life is built on so much more. As you were saying, there's so much more to it. And I really like the acronym that you use, net wealth, for outlining all the different parts. And I was wondering if you could just talk a little bit about that acronym and how you divide up all the things that we need to think about.
Yeah. The book, of course, started, and sort of my professional thinking in this area started almost in a random way. And if you think about anybody that started a book, they're usually areas, all kinds of different things that you write or you research. And what's really hard about writing a book is sort of putting it together. And it's the same thing for coaching, right? Coaching can be, if you do one-on-one coaching, it can be very customized to the individual. But once you start doing some group coaching, you actually have to have a little bit more of a system. So I had always, throughout my professional career, I had always been a huge believer that you have to take complexity and you have to create simplicity out of complexity. And that's when I kind of came up with the idea of this net wealth acronym, which, what I was trying to capture is the idea that money is important, but it's not the only thing. And what are those other things that are important? So I came up with net wealth. So every letter covers a different area, if you like. So let's start with the first part, which is the NET. So the N is for your nest, for where you live and your environment. As I mentioned before, a lot of times when people start thinking about retirement, they do think about where they want to live. A lot of my friends have already moved to Florida, or they've moved to Arizona, or some of my more adventurous friends are now in Mexico or Portugal. And so that covers the end. Where do you want to live and how? What type of environment? The E stands for earnings. So that's the financial side, the money side. And I make a big point in the book about the fact that it's not about having a big pot of money. It's about having enough money to fund your lifestyle. And that's why I like the concept of, I talk in terms of earning, almost like replacing your paycheck. Can you create that from the assets that you have, and from potential, work, if you decide to do that. So that's the E. And the T is for time. And time, as we know, is what everybody focuses when you hear that somebody's retiring. Oh, how lucky now, all the time is yours. But actually, there's a burden with that too. Because if you waste time, and especially a lot of the couples and people I deal with and coach, they're very high achieving people. They've had professional careers. They care about sort of the work that they do. They have a lot of they have high standards in their life. And suddenly to go into a mentality where your time has no value and to treat it that way is not a very natural thing. It might be natural in the short term, but not in the long term. So I always tell people that the net part of my framework is really what the traditional retirement industry focuses on, right? Where are you going to live, your money, and then how you're going to spend your time. And then the second part, the wealth component, is what I call the turbochargers. These are things that a lot of people haven't really thought about. So let's start with the W. The W means it stands for work. A lot of people ask me, well, why would I work if I'm retired? And I keep telling them that the word retirement is really has a different meaning today than it did, for example, 20, 30 years ago. To me, work is essential to what we do in life. So you can work for money, you can work for or for pure satisfaction. So even if you work for a nonprofit, let's say you're interested in the environment and you want to help out, um, that is work. You know, that requires a commitment of your time to further a cause. So that's the W, work, and especially nowadays where people are living 20, 30 years in retirement. It's very important to kind of keep your job skills, your work skills fresh. And maybe you're not going to be doing the same thing all the time, or what you did for your primary career, but you might be doing something that uses those skills. So that's the W. The E stands for emotional energy. And this is an area that I think gets very much ignored, especially when it comes to retirement. Everybody thinks that retirement is a period of time where you don't have stress, when your life suddenly becomes easy. And the reality and the way that I've seen my own life evolve, and the way I see a lot of my clients evolve, is that retirement is just a phase in life. It's another phase in life that still has the same, upside and the same downside as any other phase. It's just a little bit different. So managing your emotions is incredibly important, because if you think about sort of your energy levels during the day, a lot of that is physical, but a lot of that is emotional. You can't be upbeat if you're depressed or if you're worried about some aspect in your life, if you're dealing with stress, chronic stress. So this part, the second E in my framework, is really about emotional energy and ways to become energized and, in a sense, control your mindset and use your mindset to have a more positive outlook in life, and also remain flexible and optimistic about your life. The third letter in the wealth piece is an A, and the A is for achievements. And this is another area that sometimes causes a little bit of, question marks, or brings a lot of question marks, because a lot of people think that when you retire, you no longer have any goals. And I think that's incredible. That's so wrong, because during your working career and when you're raising a family, for example, you have goals. You want to get better at your job, you want to make more money, you want to have more work satisfaction, you want to raise a wonderful family, wonderful kids, and so forth. But when you retire, your goals may actually they become more your own. And I think that it's always important to look forward in life. I mean, a lot of people like to live their life in the past, and I think that's a mistake, especially when they retire. So I encourage people to spend a significant portion thinking about what they want to do going forward. That's having 2 or 3 goals. And those could be simple things. Could be taking care of the grandchildren. Could be learning Spanish, like in your case, Jackie, right? It could be becoming a better tennis player, gardener, like those are my goals. It could be building a little business. So that's really important to still wake up in the morning saying, I need to work on something for my future. Okay, then comes the L part, which is learning. And learning is really important too. A lot of these areas, you can think of them as being sort of correlated with each other, right? They work with each other. So the L part is really important, but I kind of, in my book, I positioned the learning part as really a great tool to improve and fine tune your mental health, right? Because there's no better way to keep your to keep your brain healthy than to learn new things. So it's not about just doing the same thing over and over again. It's also about learning new things, finding something challenging. For example, in your case, learning a language is it has been found to be incredibly important and useful for keeping brain health. So it's really encouraging people to not just accept that everything that they've learned up to this point is it, but to keep learning new things. And again, this is all a la carte. This is all like what you like to learn is going to be very different from, for example, what I want to learn. And I just think that it has to be thought of in a systematic way, in a sense that you need to sort of plan for that. You need to, challenge yourself to learn something that is not only going to be exciting for you, but it's also going to be a little bit of a push, because I think it's really important in retirement, for example, to keep pushing ourselves a little bit. But it can still be, it's of your choosing. So you're not going to be, if you don't want to learn French or Spanish, nobody's going to force you to do that. You can do something else. The T part, the next letter is the T, and that's for tribe. And those are social connections. And I think it's very well established that really your social network is incredibly valuable for your well-being. There's the long-standing Harvard study that has tracked people for 50, 60 years, and one key characteristic that they found among people enjoying greater happiness and well-being is sort of their social connections, the quality of their social circle. And here the idea that I present in the book is not, it doesn't mean, once you retire, it doesn't mean that your social circle needs to be static. In fact, when you retire, your social circle will initially become smaller, because a lot of your connections that you made at work, while you think they're really strong connections, will really dissipate over time. So it's really important to keep investing in your social circle. Surround yourself with family, which of course, but also friends, and friends of different types of friends, right? You can have some friends that are more people that you, for example, spend time volunteering with, or playing a sport with, or learning a new skill. Or it could just be people that your next door neighbor, or people that, if let's say you move to a new location, these are just people in a new community. It's just be open to making those connections, because social connections are incredibly important to your well-being. And then the last one is health. And health, again, there's no more important aspect to your well-being than being healthy. And by this, I mean being physically healthy. And here I talk a lot about nutrition, the need to exercise, the need for proper sleep, all of those things, the basics in life, that, as I call them with a lot of my clients, that you just need to keep doing. So that's basically the system that I use with my clients. But it really begins with sort of this idea of, how do you see yourself in the future? And that's where the second part of my system is this idea of your future self, which is really sort of creating your own vision for what your life, how you want your life to look like in the future.
I think you've probably covered everything we could think of in terms of the things that affect you in your life. One of the things that I read is that you talk about leading either an easy life or a fulfilling life. Do you really think that they're kind of opposed? Can't we do we have to pick one or the other? Can we have an easy life that is fulfilling?
I think that this also creates some interesting questions. I position them as sort of on the opposite end of the spectrum to really just make people think about it. Right? We all want elements of the easy life. We all need, for example, to feel comfortable. We need lodging. We need to feel safe in our home. We need to have enough money for health and food and entertainment. So it's really a combination of these two. What I'm trying to really present is the idea that you still fulfillment is actually a long-term sort of beneficial aspect to your life. Comfort in the easy life is more about sort of your everyday life. And it's really about yourself as opposed to others. Fulfillment, I think, involves other people as well as you, of course. And I think that's sort of the concept that I'm trying to present. But I think that we all want, there are many days when, for example, I wake up and I say to myself, wow, I just want the easy life. I want to be on a beach, sipping a margarita. And I just don't want to think about anything besides, sort of what I'm going to have for lunch and what I'm going to have for dinner. So I want the easy life. But there are also times when I really want to be stretched. And I think that it's in our nature as humans to want to serve others and be part of other people's lives and make their lives better. And I think that's where fulfillment comes in. So I think it's really about balance of all of these things in life, and it's not an either or, but I present it as an either or simply to get the conversation going.
Right, just to make us think, do you want to do something with your life or just sit and watch Netflix?
Right, correct.
So you also talk about change and the fact that there are three basic phases that you go through in any change in your life. You've got the ending where the change starts. You've got the period in the middle that you call the messy middle while you go through all the things, and then the new beginning. Can you talk a little bit about how that relates to retirement and how people might navigate those three phases?
Yeah, absolutely. So a lot of people, when they think about retirement, they think of a beginning, actually. They think, oh, this is the beginning of my new life. But it's really, if you really think about it, it's the end of the previous phase of your life. It's the end, for example, of commuting into an office, working with a team of people. It really is a much bigger change than most people anticipate. People, when they think about retirement, they tend to be, especially if they're financially set, they tend to think of only the positives of retirement. They think about spending time, traveling, having more time to do some hobbies and so forth, but they actually don't really kind of mourn the ending of a phase in life. So, for example, I'll give you another thing that I think is very similar to retirement is when you become an empty nester. So if you've raised children and your children leave the home, I think it's really a sad time for a lot of parents. And it's an ending of kind of hearing noise in the home. And I think retirement is the same, even though I have never met anybody that likes to commute. It's sort of something that you do. It's an automatic. You wake up, you go to work, you take a shower, you get ready for work, you go to work, you start your day, you check your emails. All of that is gone when you're retired, right? So when you retire. So I think that it's important to acknowledge that something is ending, and that while your new life is beginning, most people don't know exactly what that new life is going to look like. So that's where you go from an ending to the messy middle. And I call it the messy middle. And other people, actually, there's a phrase that Chip Conley from the Modern Elder Academy first coined. I call it the messy middle because change is never easy. right? Change always involves a period of uncertainty. It involves some optimism, days where you're really optimistic about the change, but other days where you question whether that change is actually going to work for you, and, or how are you going to change? In what way? What is it going to require? So I think that's why Chip Conley calls this the messy middle. And it's messy because it involves a lot of your emotions, a lot of positive emotions, but a lot of negative emotions. And I think when you look at a lot of the research on retirement, there's this honeymoon phase for a lot of people where the first year or year and a half is actually really, people love the newness of it. But after that honeymoon phase, they start questioning, well, okay, I've played a lot of golf. I've, we've done a lot of traveling. I'm a little tired from it traveling. Now what? I want to do something else. I kind of miss being at work, or at least I miss parts of my professional life, for example. Or I want to do something that I have never had the time to do, and I really want to focus on that. And that's where you're trying to decide for yourself, trying to find clarity. So that's the messy middle. Eventually, you find that clarity, and that's your new beginning. But this is sort of the process that we all go through, regardless of the type of change that we're going through. And I always tell my clients, this is not something that you're going to do once in retirement. You're going to do this multiple times. And in a sense, this is life, right? We're always sort of ending something, being a little confused, or trying to find clarity on a different issue, and also starting something new. So it's really a combination of things. But I think it's important for people to understand that the transition into retirement is not going to be 100%, positive all the time. That you really need to work at it and figure out for yourself, what is it that's going to give you that fulfillment and that satisfaction in life.
I think that's it's something that a lot of people don't realize going into it. As you said, they think, retirement's here, I'm done, everything is going to be rosy. And then when it isn't, they don't know whether, gee, did I make a mistake? Am I not supposed to be retired? Should I have stayed at work? Lots of things go through your mind. One of the things that I read that I passed through while I was reading the book is the time allocation. And I really liked your example about doing the grocery store shopping grab, where you can spend all your time, picking up a whole bunch of little things and end up with not a whole lot in your grocery cart at the end, or you can go for the bigger things and have kind of more bang for your buck. And I like the idea of relating that sort of thing in my head to how I spend my time in retirement, because people are always asking, what do you do with yourself? And other people are commenting, oh, I never knew I could do so many things. I don't know how I did anything before I retired, because I'm busy all the time now. And I'm just wondering, what's the best way to kind of sit down and sort out your time so that you're not taking all your time doing the little things that don't mean anything. Now, you had this nice little graph that, quadrants, and laid it out, important and urgent, not important, but urgent. How do we decide what's really important in our life?
I think it really starts with your vision of what you want your life in retirement to be like, right? So and this is the concept of your future self, which is really answering three questions. I call them the three pillars. There is the who would I want to become? So for what type of person do I want to be for the rest of my life? The second one is what do I want to accomplish? So these are very high level. What are my dreams? What do I want to accomplish? The third one is why. So those are really important questions to ask yourself first. Clearly, if you don't have any dreams, or you don't have, you can just spend your time any way you want. It's not going to matter. But if you do have dreams, and I think we all do, we just haven't really thought about it that carefully. I think you really the idea of time it's a really important concept, because a lot of people go into retirement thinking that their time is no longer valuable. And I actually think it's the exact opposite, because I think that the less time you have on Earth, the more valuable it becomes by definition. So I think this is a time to, instead of spending time on busy things, and we all have to do that, right? We all have chores. We all have to, balance the checkbook. We all have to kind of file our taxes, and we all have to do our, go grocery shopping and things like that. But I think there's also an incredible, we all have an incredible ability to make ourselves busy without realizing how we're wasting our time. So one of the first things I like to do with clients is start with this exercise of what matters to you. How do you want your life to be? But then I drill down to sort of the nitty gritty, and I ask them to basically, over the next 2 or 3 weeks, really just figure out, how are you spending your time? Just jot down in a journal. Okay, how many times did I watch, how many hours did I watch TV? How many hours did I spend, on social, on Facebook, for example? How much time did I spend actually going to the gym or working on something that was important, spending time with family? So I like people to take an inventory of their time. And usually what ends up happening is that people are surprised after 2 or 3 weeks with doing this. And they realize, wow, I'm spending a lot of time on grocery shopping, or on cleaning the house, or on especially on social media and TV. Those are the two time sinks that I think people don't have any idea how much time they're spending on those type of activities. And they very, very quickly realize, I could easily create out of thin air 2 or 3 hours a day that I could be spending on activities that are more valuable to me and that matter a lot more. So that's I think the idea that that's why I like people to think about time in a more structured way. A lot of people don't think that you should have any structure on your time in retirement. I think that's a mistake. I think you really should schedule time for the stuff that's really important to you. Now, I'm not going to tell you what's important, right? You have to figure that out, but then make the time, schedule it in. A new hobby. You're not going to go from beginning Spanish to intermediate Spanish if you don't put the time in. And that's sort of the idea here, is that you really need to schedule your time and spend more time on things that matter to you, and less time on things that don't. And as you mentioned before, a lot of people in retirement are very busy. But I always ask the question, busy doing what? And it's not, I'm not trying to be mean. It's just really just a question to make him think, okay, maybe some of these things I don't have to do. I don't have to clean my house every second day. Or I could hire
That hasn't been my
somebody.
problem. My family would.
It's not my problem either. And so I think we live in a world today where a lot of things can be outsourced, and focus on things that you enjoy doing, and outsource almost everything else.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I like your 3 pillars. So, who do I want to be? What do I want to do? And especially why. I think the why is the thing that's hard for most people to answer until they take some time to really dig deep inside them. And a lot of people are maybe kind of scared to do that.
I agree with you. I think these questions are scary. A lot of people haven't thought about it, and especially couples, right? That a couple may have very different views, very different answers to those questions. But it's an incredibly important exercise to go through, first independently and then come together to try to find a common set of answers to those questions that are, you're stronger as a couple, and being and you need the support of people. You need to be part of you need to have that social network, including your primary couple, to work together in terms of what you want your life to be like.
This is the kind of thing that I could keep talking about for hours, but I think we're going to have to draw it to a close very shortly. If you could give people one piece of advice as they head into retirement, what would it be?
It would be, don't look for cookie cutter solutions. Think on your own. Take the time. This is not going to come to you in a day or two. It's a process that takes years. It could take months. It could take years too. And I think we all evolve, but really educate yourself and think about your life. Be intellectually honest about your life. And try to design a life that you'll be very happy, and also a life that you'll be proud of. So I think it's important to lead a life. The greatest legacy, in my opinion, that we can leave to the world is an example of how we live, and everyday living. So I think it's really think for yourself, plan ahead, and take action. And I think that's it's really important not to stop at the thinking part, but also adopt the habits and lifestyle to make those plans a reality.
Oh, perfect. Thanks very much, Eric. I've really enjoyed talking with you today.
I enjoyed it as well, Jackie, and thank you very much. And thank you for having me on your show.
And that's it for this episode of Beyond Retirement. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed it. Are you ready to start rocking your retirement? Head on over to www.beyondretirement.ca/rocking-it and sign up to plan out your own roadmap for retirement. Don't wait till it's too late.